last nor least, let's shift to our home state of New South Wales.
Yep.
So I cannot have this show without talking about Newcastle, my home city. So let's quickly touch on Newcastle before we head to the big humping Sydney.
Yeah, sure. So when it comes to Newcastle, like we're the second biggest city in New South Wales.
We are.
And
Don't tell anyone.
It's becoming a city. It's gone from like a regional town to a city.
Has.
Used to be a coal port and steel city was all it was known for.
Yep.
It's still the world's biggest exporter of coal as far as the harbour goes.
Yep.
But that was recently traded and a Chinese-backed bank has actually taken a 99-year lease on it. With another capital arm, and they're looking at alternate uses for that port. They've already expanded the cruise ship side of things.
Yes.
They've got cargo coming in and out of there now as well as the coal. But
So even though people are going coals all down and out, Newcastle actually has a pile of other things happening.
Oh, definitely. So, growth drivers we look at, I spoke at Cityscape in Korea, South Korea recently,
Yep.
and, they're looking at what areas are emerging.
Yes.
And Newcastle, when you add up all the drivers, we've got a RAF base that's got multi-billion-dollar contracts over
Yes.
many years. We've got a huge health sector. We've got education. They're bringing unis into the city.
Yes.
3,500 students, plus they're expanding, plus Japanese have just bought a building and they're going to convert it to a boutique university.
Yes.
Then you've got great employment, great construction, properties going well, hour to the vineyards. So these are all things that are driving Newcastle, and we've seen extremely good growth in the city, and it's rippling out to, say, Lake Macquarie as well.
Absolutely. And a lot of people are saying that Newcastle has completely followed and bumped off Sydney, and that we're going to dive when Sydney dives.
Yeah, so historically, Newcastle used to follow Sydney because we were just like the little sister. I'm so glad you said sister and not brother. We could have said it as well. We were the little sister. That's because we didn't really have any growth drivers other than what was going on in coal or New South Wales economy.
Yes.
Now it's got its own story.
Okay.
And what we're seeing is people exiting markets like Sydney and Melbourne where they've done really well and they're coming for the lifestyle, the jobs.
Yes.
And we've got 8 beaches within minutes of the city.
Literally.
And, I live pretty much 300 metres from the beach and my office is 400 metres away and ... And we've got restaurants and everything right near us. Newcastle's one of those places you can have it all. And that's driving growth. Okay,
we're totally never putting this to air because I don't want everyone to know that Newcastle is where we have it all.
Oh, yeah, the best kept secret.
That's right. Not anymore. Not anymore.
Yeah.
And so what about Sydney now?
Yeah, so Sydney is still undersupplied. So if you talk to someone like Dr. Andrew Wilson or any of the sort of economists out there, Tim Lawless from RP Data, they look at Sydney and they say, okay, yeah, it's coming off the boil because, again, the Asian influence on the market was huge. The fact we've had such strong growth for such a long period of time, income versus the cost of living there, and all of these things that go with it. But there's no doubt it's still undersupplied. It's still growing rapidly. It's a 4 to 5 million person population. And people don't want to commute 1.5 to 2 hours to get into Sydney, so they want to live in there. If you want to live in there and there's more people than there is property, then you're going to have upward price pressure.
We're talking back to the old-fashioned, simple supply and demand.
Supply and demand. And I suppose, I've kind of indicated that on all the markets we've talked about.
Yes.
If you can find something that's hard to replicate, then you're going to have more demand than you are supply. In Sydney, those suburbs in the city, those Surrey Hill suburbs, the inner west, the Paddingtons, Redfern has come a long way. It's one train station stop from the city. And you just think, what do people want? They want to be amongst where they're working. They want bars, they want cafes, they want lifestyle.
Do you know one thing I'm even noticing though? Even out as far as the Hornsby Rim, the Hornsby Heights, what used to be not even classed as Sydney before, now that's actually, it's 40 minutes on a train from the city compared to some of the suburbs that are, say, at the foothills of the Blue Mountains. That's actually considered to be part of not the inner city, obviously, but the very acceptable rim to live in. And totally. prices there are booming still as well.
Well, as far as Hornsby and those areas, but also if you look at what they call Greater Western Sydney now, that growth corridor with the WestConnex that's going on. So you're thinking around that Parramatta area, Blacktown, out through to Penrith. They were areas that used to be so far flung. You look at, say, Parramatta, for example, they're calling that the new Sydney. So, if you look...
That's interesting.
It's interesting. So you look at the type of buildings that are going up, you look at Of the top, I think, 500 companies in Australia, there's something like 130 of them that have got head office or presence in around Parramatta. So
that's actually a big stat. That is significant, isn't it?
Yeah, very diverse culturally as well. Lots of population there of people that have moved over, immigrated, or, you know...
So pretty much what you're saying to me with Sydney. So we've got this big bubble and this big balloon and everyone's waiting for someone to come out of Pandora's box and pop it. So what you're suggesting to me is if you're in an area with, again, piles of drivers, you can't be replicated, which realistically... anywhere close into the city, it's pretty hard to replicate what we have in Sydney.
Yeah, transport and being near that transport and being short on land.
Yep. Yeah. And so, in that sense, that even if someone came across with a big pin, it's not going to deflate down to a little shriveled up balloon.
Well, in all the changes in the markets we've seen, like if you go back 4, 5, 6 cycles, most of those cycles have been between 6 and 10 year cycles.
Yes.
If you look at Sydney's, it's a bit of a sawtooth sometimes where it goes up steeper, pulls back quite steep. But, you know, even the GFC, you had areas like Double Bay and Vaucluse that were really prestigious areas, a lot of money tied up in overseas markets and tied to the share market. Those properties softened by like 20% at the elite end of the market.
Okay.
You know, but if you have a look at the ones that were, say, $1 million in Vaucluse and Double Bay and places like that, they didn't come back 20%. They came back like 5 and 6 and 7, and they recovered like a year and a half later.
Absolutely.
So, you know...
which is actually really quick.
Yeah, definitely.
In the property market, recovering from a drawdown in the market after a year, that's amazing.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where, you know, if you're looking at it for the longer term, it have to be something really macro and really across the whole country to disrupt the drivers that somewhere like Sydney's got with population and all the other things we've talked about.
I like it. So guys, there is a Pandora's box and we just peeked inside it today. We certainly didn't open it up. We peeked inside Pandora's box on what's happening in our real estate markets across the country. So thank you, Mark, again. I love the insights. I think there's so much everyone can take from this, and we'll see you next time that you're on the couch.
Look forward to it.